I'm Eric Newton, and this is The Together Show. We all know relationships take work, but what is that work, and how do we do it? As a former divorce lawyer, I've watched thousands of couples break up firsthand. Having seen the worst in relationships, I decided to try to help couples stay together. So on this show, we talk to real couples and find out what love really looks like.
Tim actually ended up coming to Boise first, and so the first time we met was at the airport.
Waiting for this person that I've only seen in photos, and then I thought it was so strange when she popped out of the car. This first 10 seconds of being in each other's space, it was so comfortable.
Yeah.
And it wasn't awkward in the way that you would expect picking a stranger up from the airport.
Welcome to the show, everybody. Thanks for listening. I realized while reflecting on the show this week that other than my very brief show opener that you probably hear at the beginning of each episode, I've never fully explained why I'm producing Together, the podcast or the magazine. And in some sense, there really is only one answer, and that's that I love this project more than anything I've ever done. But I do have a humble agenda, which I may as well confess, and that is simply to help all of us let go of some measure of shame by uncovering stories about what it means to be a real person with real challenges. In this particular era of social media where our feeds are perfectly manicured to showcase our most clever and our most happy selves, it can be easy to feel like something is wrong when the normal challenges of being a human and the normal challenges of being in a relationship begin to arise. And our show hopes to be an antidote to that shame, to remind us that it's perfectly okay to be a real person with real challenges. All that means about you is that you're a real person with real challenges. And that brings me to our couple for the week, Kelli and Timothy Lamb. Now, this is a very sweet story about true love. Yes, I actually do mean that in this case. And about the realities of living together day by day in the midst of love. And those two things are just not mutually exclusive. We can both be in love and face the hard times that come up in a relationship with one another. What makes this story fascinating, as with all of our guests, is the willingness of Kelli and Tim to be fully transparent about the challenges. And this is particularly the case because Kelli and Tim are both fairly well known. Kelli is the managing editor and also the social media face for Rue magazine. And Timothy is one of the art directors at DreamWorks Animation. He was the character designer for the forthcoming Trolls movie, which is out this November. Now, some might say that speaking openly about the hard times could fly in the face of a perfectly manicured social media feed. I say not so. Truth adds depth, depth creates value, and that is what it means to be perfectly manicured. And Kelli and Tim have both depth and value in spades. So with that, let's go to part one of our interview with Kelli and Timothy Lamb. One of the things I never learned was how you met.
Very condensed version is one of my childhood friends went away to college in California and ended up meeting Tim and becoming very good friends with him and very good friends with kind of your second family, some guys you were really close with. And through the world of Facebook, one of those guys ended up dating my best friend long distance, or trying to. And it didn't work out, which gave Tim and I a lot of time to chat as wingmen. Like, what was your perspective of, how it's going with the two of them?
We'd compare notes.
And they'd bring you along.
Yeah, so I got to know his best friend very well.
But we had never met in person.
We had never met in person. And I actually do think that the original reason I requested you on Facebook was because they were like, he has this really cool cat. And
same one he has now?
Leonard, yeah.
I love Leonard.
Yeah. So I wanted to see pictures of Leonard, this Bengal cat, but then we got to talking, and then it didn't work out with the friends. And so 5 years later, my iPad lit up with a little message.
5 years?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm slow to warm. It took me 5 years to muster the courage to write a Facebook message.
Yeah, so he sent a
Yeah, I
Facebook
reached out
message.
and I was just like, hey, long time no talk, stranger. When are you coming to San Francisco next?
And
You
I
know,
was
you
like,
should come say hi."
tomorrow. I'd been waiting because I'd kind of had a major crush
You're
from
about like
afar.
cold calls. It was like a cold like message.
Cold
like, Came out of
message.
nowhere.
I was excited though. I feel like I had really been waiting for this. I just always had this really strong feeling about him, just through photos or knowing what little I knew about Tim. I was really intrigued and really interested and thought he was pretty dreamy. So I was
Oh,
really
shucks.
excited.
How did you never express that?
The thing it wasn't like, you were in Boise and I was in LA, and we actually
Yeah.
hadn't met each other
Yeah.
in real life, you know? So it was more like really all I knew about Kelly was that my friend thought that she was like the raddest chick, and her Facebook photos, which I was known to check out from time to time. But those were the two, those were honestly the only two things. So it's like the reality of whether or not you're going to actually ever meet that person, that was probably just enough to kind of keep us at a distance for a long time.
I
Yeah.
totally misunderstood. I thought that you guys were wingmanning in person that whole time.
Oh,
No, no,
no. Never met, just internet. Friends were visiting. So I
Yeah.
got to know his friends in person.
Okay.
And yeah, so through that, I had met friends in real life. And so I knew Tim was real, but he and I had never actually met in person until, 5 years goes by and then he sends that message. And then
So so that it's interesting that you said, when are you going to be in San Francisco next?
Yeah.
Did you want to say come to San Francisco?
I might have said that. Actually, I should look back at that message, but I might have said, hey, you should come to San Francisco for a weekend.
Yeah.
Which is a really creepy offer coming from a dude
Somebody
that
you haven't
you've never seen in person.
yeah.
But
But it happens all the time, actually.
yeah.
yeah, it's called catfishing. And
But then
no, it does happen all the time, but I guess I'm still getting used to the idea that that's just how couples meet now. Like technology is kind of at the center
Yeah.
of it. And there was a phase where that was a new thing, and it was like the creepy, like loser way to meet someone.
right.
Like I don't know if that's my own judgmental outlook, but like
totally,
early on, it was
yeah.
like, ooh, you met someone online, but it happens so often now.
Yeah.
Maybe it happens more often than it doesn't happen.
which for us, I really was grateful for because after the Facebook message, we then started texting and really, talking what seemed like all day, every day, without meeting in person. And so when we finally did meet, it was like old friends who.
Yes.
So to sum it up, Tim actually ended up coming to Boise first, and so the first time we met was at the airport. And
Wow.
yeah, picked him up at the airport.
Oh,
and
you guys must have been so nervous.
I
On
was
the
so
on
nervous.
the curb,
Yeah.
waiting for, I guess, this person that I've only seen in photos, and then I thought it was so strange when she popped out of the car. And I guess the best part of our meeting story is that we both, this first 10 seconds of being in each other's space, it was so comfortable.
Yeah.
And it wasn't awkward in the way that you would expect picking a stranger up
Yeah.
from the airport. I just got into the car and I was like, oh, it's like I've known this person my whole life. I know that's really obnoxious to say because I don't know.
Well, I always say that
It's so
as
cheesy to say that, but I actually did have that feeling.
Yeah.
So
And I say as I saw him standing there, before I even put the car in park, I was like, everything's different now forever. Like I just knew.
Whoa.
So like, that love at first sight is like the ultimate cheesy thing that someone can say.
Yeah.
But I just looked and like parked and I was like, this is it. Everything's different for forever. Like life as I know it is completely over. And it wasn't like dread in any way. It was like just the most reassuring feeling.
The way you just said it, never heard anybody express it that way. It's so clear.
oh, it was a good way to meet someone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say the best thing about our sort of initial trailblazing our relationship was the long distance, and it seems like that would be a big hindrance, but it forced us to get to know each other on just, purely just conversational only, and I think people want to jump ahead often, when
Yeah.
you're in the same room. And we really didn't. We really like took it pretty slow. You know, we really got to know each other from a distance, and there was definitely a lot of flights, a lot of
Yeah.
weekend visits. But
I wonder what the chemistry must have been like in the beginning, before you had met each other physically. Were you feeling high on each other before you physically met? Were you getting like that dopamine rush?
for sure, yeah,
I was,
I was.
I was just so excited to be talking to him, and
Well,
that-
anything that has anticipation like
Yeah.
that, like it's a build up, the anticipation, it's very palpable.
Yeah, and then when you did meet,
Mhm.
there must have been an uptick in that feeling.
At first.
yeah, it
And
was.
then?
I think we decided I would be moving. If we met,
After 9 months, right?
we met in September, and I told
9,
my
10, 11.
family. Yeah, we met on 9/10/11,
Right.
so we'll never forget.
Wow.
I probably still will, but
But I remember telling my family that I was moving to San Francisco around the holidays. So we decided pretty quickly that that was the obvious solution.
Right.
And even my family was like, absolutely, like, because everyone just knew.
Right, because they'd been meeting him every time he visited Boise.
Yeah. So everyone was, friends, everyone was just so excited and knew it was this different experience, not like, oh, I'm seeing this guy. My dad has always been so supportive of relationships and meeting guys. Like, he's never been, the one like polishing his rifle when they come to pick me up or anything like that. But he always was supportive. But I saw such a change in how he accepted Tim that was enough of a sign. I didn't need any more signs, but it was just such an affirmation of like, this isn't crazy to be packing up my life and moving to be with this person. It felt very normal and very obvious that that's what I should be doing.
Yeah.
it was definitely a really refreshing experience to have, to be accepted into your family so quickly.
I think
It was
that you're
nice.
I think you're the favorite now. I think actually
am.
I'm out.
Actually,
That's how it always
that's
goes,
for
right?
sure. Yeah. I got more Christmas gifts this year.
You
They're
did.
way nicer.
Well, so I want to ask about then that transition into living together, but
Yeah.
to set the stage, fast forwarding to today, 4 or 5 years later,
Yeah.
we're sitting in your beautiful home. I mean, you guys have
Thank you.
put this place is off the hook. It's like right out of it. Well, in fact, it has been in a magazine,
Yeah, that's
hasn't it?
true.
So
Right
it's-
off the pages of a magazine.
so you've,
Online magazine.
you've built this life, and it's really idyllic, and you guys have challenges, but you also have a lot of love for each other, and it's just, as you
Challenges?
said, palpable.
No challenges.
None at all? Well, that's what I want to ask about. So, back up then. You've been dating online, visiting, which is always exciting. Have there been any problems yet? Have you ever had a fight at all during that period of time?
With the
During long distance. Yeah. A
yeah,
few.
there were a few fights.
You
But
had
not-
fights long distance? Tell me more. I want to
Not,
know what they were.
Not really harmful or not anything like too deep, but definitely it was pretty hard to go from being apart for 2-3 weeks, a month, and then in each other's faces for 3 days. And then the feeling of, I think maybe there was a lot of pressure during that time for things to go just a certain way. And so I remember feeling maybe anxiety or discontent that if things weren't exactly how I imagined, or if something went wrong, or
Well, I'm glad you said pressure because
Yeah.
I think there was some pressure because we really immediately felt there was something special about our chemistry, and it kind of immediately put a precedent in place where it was like we're moving in together. That is going to be a big step. That's an imminent decision we have, and then as soon as that happens, then you're really in it because you are sharing the same space and you're really kind of committed in a pretty serious way. So yeah, I think as soon as we decided that we'd live in San Francisco together,
Yeah.
that was when pressure was on.
yeah.
Were you engaged at that point, or did that come later?
No.
We
Kelly jokes about thinking that the engagement was going to happen as soon as she moved, and then it ended up being a year and a half later.
Yeah, a year and a half. But we had talked about it from very early on that we knew we would be married. But we were not engaged, so we went from long distance to like brand new, full time, every single day, every single night. Like, and I'm very new to the city. I think I knew Tim and like one other person. And so there was a lot of immediate challenges of him feeling pressure that, I was happy and comfortable, and me feeling totally overwhelmed in this like complete culture shock, which took a while, about a year for me to finally feel comfortable in San Francisco.
Just in time to move to LA.
Yeah. We were there. We ended up, I was there for 3 years.
It sounds so bad that you moved to San Francisco and right after we got married. Now we live here.
Well, no, we
But-
were in San Francisco long enough that I ended up loving it and feeling very much like myself. But there's no denying that the first 6 months to a year were like,
I would say
really
the full
turbulent.
first year were that was difficult.
it was really,
Well, also
yeah.
because I had a lot of guilt about like I had a life before Kelly in the city, and then now suddenly there's this special person that's in sharing the same space, and then wanting to go out with people that I knew she either didn't like or didn't really feel comfortable hanging out with too much, or me giving myself the license of I'm going to hang out with some guy friends tonight. That's what, because I was always worried about leaving her home.
Because she
You
hadn't
know?
found her feet yet.
Yeah, because, like I'm really her number one person. And so I never felt comfortable leaving or doing anything without her. And so it kind of like set up this situation where I felt obligated to be at home.
Which
or,
can then set
or
up
to take her
resentment.
everywhere we went.
yeah. And even to the point where I would say,
And it sets up resentment, yeah.
I would say, I really, really want to just watch like a romantic comedy and order pizza
Yeah,
by myself. Like, please, you can go.
Yeah.
And
I still waited.
you felt like a distrust of like, she doesn't mean that.
Yeah.
Like, I should really stay. And then I started feeling maybe sorry for myself that I was like stuck, or like nervous that I was holding him back from if he wanted to go out because of how hard it had been. The adjustment was a really hard adjustment. And so when I did start feeling more comfortable, like the precedent had already been set that I couldn't be left alone. So I could.
So, okay. Yeah, so I'm curious about that dynamic where you were worried, Tim, to leave Kelly
Yeah.
at all.
I'm curious about this dynamic.
And Kelly, you both were having a hard time with the transition, but also didn't want to keep Tim from having a life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you were conflicted, and he wouldn't even listen to you when you did want
Yeah, I
him
didn't
to
trust
go
it.
out.
Yeah. Well,
So
I mean,
that's like a classic codynamic setup, or it's a classic setup to pop right through that and learn something about each other. And I'm curious how that all played out.
I think that he didn't believe me when I would say that because there had been many instances where I said initially earlier on had said, no, it's fine, you can go. And then was just a total wreck because especially with social media, seeing all my friends, their lives hadn't changed and feeling more isolated. And so it was a really emotional roller coaster for me. And then of course I like strapped him in on the same roller coaster. I was like, "You're coming with me."
That's how it is in partnership, isn't it? One person can
Yeah.
have so much peace, but if the other one's not,
And I
Yeah.
think that's something that we've learned about each other through the last 3.5, 4 years. Is I really am starting to learn that like Kelly's gonna have her emotional journey and I'm gonna have mine. They don't always have to line up, even though we're going through a lot of the same things. Like I don't have to be on a high with her, or I don't have to be on a super low with her. I can just be kind of more steady. I could be where I'm comfortable and support her when I can. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It doesn't make sense.
It
huh?
makes sense because I
How would
end
you
up
how would
feeling-
you describe that exact thing, but like from your side?
Well, my side is that it is frustrating, or it doesn't happen really. It hasn't happened for a while, but in the extremes of those emotional, because I can be really both ends of the spectrum. Like I feel all emotions really too much, probably, and it used to feel really frustrating to watch Tim try to match them because that wasn't always what I needed. And so your instinct was to, you know, experience whatever I was experiencing with me. And sometimes that would cause more frustration because I really just needed to go through it at my own pace and know that you were there and supporting.
Yeah.
But you don't need to fix it for me.
Yeah.
And I think that was the struggle at first, especially because I moved to your turf.
Right.
You took on a lot of responsibility of needing to fix everything up just so I would be my most comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And once I was able to just really experience it and come out the other side as an individual, then it was better as a pair.
And I have to say
Maybe
that dynamic isn't totally resolved. I don't think. Like, I still have this weird guilt that she doesn't even put on me. Like, she encourages me to go see old friends or, you know, spend time away doing whatever that I need to do. But, like, you definitely don't put the pressure on me that, like, that's not okay. But I do it to myself. So I don't know where that comes from.
Do you need her to need you in order to be safe yourself?
No, I think it's more comfortable. I think it's more comfortable for me not to reach out and like be proactive in like doing things.
Your social life,
Yeah.
you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, that I didn't expect you to say that. So you're saying that your guilt is almost a made-up an excuse that you fabricate unconsciously so that you don't have to go see your friends.
Totally. Yeah. It's like, oh no, I have
like
an obligation because I'm married now. Like,
my
oh
old
no, I have
lady.
to be chained to the couch with the old lady.
Well, you just
But-
said you didn't know where that was from, and you went right to it.
I did. I went right to it, and I'm sure I've said that in counseling in some form. But yeah, I recognize it's probably self-inflicted. Yeah.
Well, it's definitely self-inflicted.
Yeah.
The question is, what's the root of it?
Yeah. Who knows?
I
man?
think
I think you just, what do you mean, who knows? You just said it. You're
Well-
like Jedi mind tricking yourself.
Yeah.
we both
It's always more clear when you're on the outside of my brain. But
Yeah.
if you're my brain, which I am.
we both come from, we each have very strong groups of friends and really close friendships and love those people so much that we feel that, you know, extroverted tendency of like maintaining our social life and really sticking with, you know, not letting friendships fall to the wayside. But then really at the root, like we're happiest at home, just the two of us.
We're having this weird nesting phase where like we're married and we're in a new city, and so like what's most comfortable for right now is just kind of strengthening our bond and being at home together. And
Yeah.
I think that's more our default right now, and it takes a little extra work to do things, you know, with bigger groups of people or away from each other.
What about when people come over?
Yeah,
Do-
that's
do you
good
want-
too.
love it.
You
Yeah.
love that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that doesn't detract from the bonding.
No.
No. I think
We prefer that because we
Yeah.
don't have to put on shoes. It's the most
We-
selfish thing to admit, like loving hosting, so you just don't have to do the hassle of getting somewhere else.
Yeah. But I even really like, you know, if we're having someone over for dinner, I'll go all out and decorate the table and, you know, bring in those Rue, what I learned in the pages of Rue. And so, because I really enjoy that process, but it's so comfortable to be able to be in our space. And maybe that will change the longer that we're here in LA, but
I don't
Get
know.
sick of each other.
Maybe someday you'll get bored, but you have every little detail. I mean, you've got the little glasses in the cupboard and the books and the glass door. I mean, just every element of this place. I wouldn't want to leave either. In fact, I don't want to leave. Can I just move in?
yeah,
stay.
totally.
You can
You
stay.
guys don't want
Yeah.
me here.
I think my brother's coming in a few weeks, so if you don't mind bunking up together.
He seems like a nice guy.
We should just start putting like bunk beds up there and cots. Come one,
Smart.
come all.
So
It's a little
okay,
hostile.
but back to that moment where there was this beginning of a co-dynamic
Yeah.
thing. You're saying it's not fully resolved, but it's also not fully eating you. So
No.
how did you come through it in the San Francisco Times? How did he finally start to listen to you and go out a little bit?
I don't know what. I think it was a slow. It took a long time. What would you say? I have to
I-
formulate an idea first before I
Form-
start talking.
Yeah.
Well, you know, another angle, actually, let me ask it from this direction because we already
Yeah.
kind of explored you.
Yeah.
So in those San Francisco times where this dynamic was getting set up, since it doesn't dominate your relationship now, you have transitioned through it a little bit. And I'm curious, Kelly, from your perspective, how did you start to get control of what you describe as the meltdowns?
I started to feel more confident. So when I think back to where I was mentally in San Francisco, I remember really starting to feel stronger. And so I don't know what it was that, because a lot of times when we would have arguments or it would be really difficult, I always felt really frustrated because that wasn't who I was. I wasn't someone who was nervous to do things or nervous to, be in unfamiliar environments, and it really controlled me for a little while. And the more that I actually remember, because I didn't have a car and I didn't like the bus, so I would walk almost everywhere. And I remember during those walks is when I literally and metaphorically found my footing.
That's pretty good.
But no, that I remember, looking out at the city, and I was often walking to see someone that I was getting to know better. And so I just started to actually feel much more confident and comfortable in my surroundings, and then as a result, in myself and in the transition. And so I think alone.
Yeah.
And I think the
Separate
move,
from me.
I had always lived in Boise, which is something that when I meet people now, I like really brush off because I want people to think I'm this big
From
city
San
gal.
Francisco?
But it really rocked my world to, not have my family and not have my friends and not have the restaurants where people knew who I was. And I had gone from a life where I saw someone I knew every time I left the house to being completely anonymous. And I think that really was so mentally hard for me. And Tim felt responsible for that. And that caused.
Which was one part of not just my guilt that's self-imposed to cover up some social fear or whatever, but it was also a real thing. Like
Yeah.
it was a real thing that like taking care of you and being there for you physically is like that was an obligation.
Yeah.
Like, and I think that was coming from
It,
a real
felt,
place from you.
I didn't like knowing that Tim was feeling that way because moving to San Francisco was the best thing that ever happened to me, and began my new career that I never would have gotten to do what I do in Boise, not a chance at all. And so the people that I met and the work I was doing, even though it was really scary and really gave me a lot of tummy aches, it was such a smart decision. And then on top of that, I was, in this real relationship, not just dating someone because a friend had said I should, or, it was everything about it was so real and so exciting, but it still doesn't mean any of it was easy.
Right.
So as I became more comfortable and as I regained that confidence, I think that really helped me go back to being the individual that I thought that I always was.
Right. Yeah, coming through the fire, you probably were even more confident in that
Maybe.
second phase.
Yeah, probably. And I think, moving to LA, I experienced it a little bit again, just that unfamiliar territory, but I don't feel anywhere near as like isolated or disgruntled internally that
Right.
I had felt in the first move.
Right. And okay, so switching gears a little bit, you guys, I think you told me, I think you two told me that you had done some premarital counseling.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where did that come from?
For how long were we in that? About a year?
6 months, I was going to say.
Really?
Maybe. I think it was less than a year, but.
Well, we were engaged, and we were inside of a year of our wedding date. And we knew we wanted to do this because I think, Kelly, you've had a positive counseling experience in your early 20s. And then I come from a family who really believes in therapy. And I know my parents were in therapy for years, individually and as a couple. and they always say like how informative it was, how many tools that they gained from doing that for so many years. And then also they really kind of attribute the success of their marriage to actually seeing counselors over the years. So I knew that was something that I wanted to do even before we got engaged. And actually that was an argument because Kelly wasn't really comfortable seeing a therapist until
I think it was just like that, the societal standards of like, I don't want to go to premarital counseling if we're not premarital, I guess.
Oh, that seems really innocuous to me. The thing that's interesting to me is that there is a social pressure
Yeah.
to be perfect. And I think that same social pressure has a lot of people think of therapy as failure.
Yeah.
Well, I think you might have been coming from you don't want this third party to come into our relationship before it's super, super secure to like pick it apart. I think that's the
Yeah.
fear. That's the fear of.
Well, and I think especially
And I had that fear too.
I had the pressure from, my mom, and
Yeah.
anytime I went anywhere, people would say, "When are you getting engaged?" And I'd be like, "Well, ask Tim. I don't." When he asks me, like it was definitely a lot of sociological factors, social, a lot of social factors at play.
Yeah.
That
And
made me
societal. We'll just use
Societal.
all three words.
Well, friends and family, you felt like you were getting pressure from all around.
tons.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if we'd go on vacation or anything, people would say, "Is Tim going to propose?" And so then I had this like constant looming cloud of like waiting for it. And so then the idea of going to therapy while all these people are asking really just felt frustrating.
Yeah.
But
What a funny phenomenon. I've
Yeah.
never thought of this before. It must be so common for women, though. Because
Oh, yeah.
that's
Why the pressure's on the woman to be
I don't know
engaged?
if, yeah, I guess it is pressure, but I know that it's part of our cultural dialogue. Whenever people look happy, we project 5 years forward and we start asking them, when are you getting married? When are you having babies? Where's the honeymoon? And it's like
Yeah.
there's this momentum that if you didn't want to be on that train,
Yeah.
it'd be pretty hard. You did want to be on that train, but imagine not wanting to be on that train.
yeah.
So,
Well, maybe wanting to be on that train, but then having not a lot of control over when you can get on it. Because she was kind of waiting for me to propose, and it wasn't happening. So
It was
there was a lot of
constant
really
conversation.
there was a lot of really nice like weekends and like dinner dates and stuff that I would take her on that she was anticipating a proposal, and I was just looking to do something nice, but
Like,
not-
come out and walk out to the beach with me. And
Yeah.
then like, why don't we sit down here? And I was like, it's happening. And then he like put
this
his,
is so good.
put his arm
we'd be
around me.
sitting on a beach somewhere in Carmel with the moonlight, and then I would just be like, I had a lot of great memories with my family growing up. Well, it's getting cold. Do you want to go to
Yeah.
bed?
No, but worse than that, I remember you like putting your arm around me and being like, I just wanted to say, and I was like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. I'm just really glad to know you. Well, want to head back? I was like, shoot. And then, but then with the pressure,
torture.
I would come back from weekends like that, and people would be like, so anything to tell me? And so it was a really weird time to know that we needed the tools that you can gain from therapy, the communication skills and understanding each other better, while at the same time feeling a little bit harassed by people who were wondering why we weren't married yet.
Yeah.
Which, what if we had chosen to never get married? How frustrating would that be to continue?
Yeah.
I actually
Well-
took a lot from it. I make a point, I never ask women who are in serious relationships that question
Yeah.
because it's so personal and it's such a small talk. Like, oh, are you guys getting engaged? It's like rolls off the tongue real easy, but it caused me a lot of angst.
But I think once we got engaged, I have a lot of friends that really strongly recommended seeing a counselor. Just to talk out some things that maybe you haven't discussed in enough detail, Or just kind of we just heard it was good. It was a good health check. Like before getting into the whole wedding planning process, just a good thing to do. So
Well,
that's kind of,
Before we,
Yeah.
I want to ask more about this engagement period.
Yeah.
So, Tim, did you know that she was experiencing pressure during that time?
Yeah. I picked up on it.
And so were
Because she
you,
randomly would be really upset with me. I'd be like, what did I do? I took you out to dinner. But the anticipation was so much more than just dinner.
I don't think you knew
It was,
though
but what was unfair of me is I think we did have so many conversations about how, getting engaged kind of right after she moved. That was kind of the timeline. And then as soon as we moved in together, we just had to work through the adjustment period of that. And so it didn't actually feel right to get engaged until we did. So in the end, I think it was a good
in the end
timeline.
it was totally perfect, but
well,
it-
when did you do it then?
After a year and a half? 2 years?
a year and a
To
half.
the year and a
Yeah.
half.
What a stuck period, though. I mean, if on one hand you're thinking, I can't ask her, I know we're going to get married, but I can't ask her to marry me until we work through this stuff. It would probably be good to go to therapy so we could work through the stuff, but we can't go to therapy until I ask her to marry me.
Right.
That's a very stuck place. How did you resolve that?
I don't know. I don't know.
It is a really frustrating thing to hear that, because therapy was so beneficial that I feel really foolish that I wasn't willing, that I was like sticking by society's timeline for it, because
Yeah.
it wasn't a bad or shameful thing. It was great and
Actually,
helpful.
a positive thing to like work some kinks out
Yeah.
before moving to the next stage. Yeah, it was a stuck place to be. It was hard. But
Well, but then how did you finally resolve it for yourself?
well, it forced me to make a decision about Kelly in my own like mind and heart, and know that she really was the person that I wanted to spend my life with, and that the next step of ironing out details was going to be the maintenance for a decision that I made for a person in my life
And for the rest of your life.
and for the rest of my life. So I think it was actually good for me to just make sort of, in a way, just to make a very concrete decision, for us before going into the counseling
yeah.
part.
That makes so much sense. It's so different than...
Does it make sense?
It
I feel like
makes-
it makes no sense.
No, I'll tell you why. Because there is a way in which people dip their toes in the water
Yeah.
and can dip their toes for years.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we also all have this experience as humans where when you make a decision,
Yeah.
then the world lines up.
Uh-huh.
And I think women want, men too, humans want to be chosen by their partners. And so for you to make that decision was really powerful. She, in your mind and your heart, as you said, she is the one for me.
Yeah. And I think that's actually really true. Kelly wanted to be chosen, like definitively, like no questions about it, no gray area at all. She wanted, the line drawn. And I think that's really, really, really natural.
Yeah, and no
I-
conditions.
No conditions.
I agree. I did feel that way, and I just now discovered it when you said it. But I really did. I think that was a big part of me feeling nervous about counseling before being engaged, because I had made a very concrete decision, no hesitation, of I will spend my life with Tim. And I think I
that
felt
was you moving to San Francisco. That was the choice.
I think I really felt a frustration with what's the hesitation when I didn't, I know what I want regardless of, even if things are tough or there's things that we can improve, it doesn't change the fact that I want to marry you. Spend, and marry, not just, the ceremony itself, but as I want my whole life to be with you, and marriage is important to me.
Yeah.
So
This is a great podcast because I'm kind of discovering.
This is better than therapy.
Can you come back next week?
Wow. So yeah, so you made this
so-
but you never realized this before.
No. I think sort of somewhere in the shadows of my mind, I realized that, but it's a pretty human need to like be chosen and to be wanted and have that and to be secure in it. And in so many words, I think maybe requesting therapy before the choice had been like vocalized, I think that would have been hard for both of us.
Yeah.
I think it was a hard way to do it.
I think, really at the root of it, if I'm remembering those conversations about it, feeling like, well, what if this therapist tells us we're not a good fit, and then like I'm just get the boot. And I wasn't, consciously aware that was my reason for not feeling comfortable with it, but it really, in hindsight, totally, I was that fear of like, what if we go and it ends up,
Whoever is
what
seeing
if I'm
us picks us apart, and then we're suddenly
and I'm completely
with-
wrong, and I didn't
yeah.
like, I was so secure in my decision and want to spend my life with Tim that I had, reservations that someone would be like, yeah, that's a terrible idea. And then what do you do with that information if an outsider tells you you shouldn't be together?
Which isn't how therapy usually goes, but that was still what was going on for you in your mind.
Yeah.
Well, now I'm wondering about trust.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I've learned on this show is about trust, about how the only way to create trust is by layering, experience over years. And when you break it in any little way, you got to repair it.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's not articulated, it just hangs out.
Yeah.
And then it gets layers built on top of it.
Yeah. And it takes so long to build up trust with someone, and just one split second to just shatter it to pieces.
Yeah.
And then building it up is even longer than the first time.
Yeah.
So.
And the thing about asking Kelli to do therapy before getting married wasn't a major betrayal by any stretch. In fact,
No.
it came from a beautiful place, and she knew that consciously. On the other hand, it sounds to me like there was a tiny little trust crack. Like, wait a minute, the crack in the trust was I thought we were already committed, and what's the delay?
Mm-hmm.
Have you guys? Well, you didn't even know about it. Have you healed it, or have you? Where does that trust crack lie today?
Where does the trust crack lie today?
The San Andreas fault. No,
It's
terrible
does
thing
it
to
feel
say.
like it's that big? I don't know. I thought
Actually,
I was thinking more of like the crack in a glass. Like
no, there's no.
a fracture.
Actually, I noticed a huge shift after, and you've expressed this as well. As soon as we were officially married, things really, really adjusted positively. Like, I don't know if that like marriage license was like a magic like document, or we like signed our souls away, but like
It's a Band-Aid. It's a giant Band-Aid. Here, now you're gonna be just fine.
no, but
Slap
I think
a marriage license on there.
I think we felt really instantly a lot more secure, which is a weird thing because nothing outright, nothing changed drastically. It was a simple ceremony and commitment and like legal thing, but something I think really shifted mentally for both of us, where it's like we've always been on the same team, but now we have matching jerseys. Like now it's like we're really on the same team, and we're adults about it, and it's not as frivolous as say like boyfriend, girlfriend, casual. There's
super official at that point.
and
Well, also I think that when you make that leap, it is a leap of faith and trust or whatever else. But like once you're on the other side of it, you really adjust to whatever the problems that previously were such a big deal. When you are married, those big deals become just a small thing that you have no choice but to work out. And so there was a certain amount of peace that followed getting married, where it was just like, okay, well, we're together, our lives are together, and we can handle whatever comes our way, or we can repair whatever is hindering our relationship from growing, but it's never a question of will it. It's always like, well, that's what we do now because we're married. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense. And I've heard it from other couples, too.
Yeah.
They've experienced.
Some people say it's a spiritual thing, too, right?
Yeah. And I've definitely heard people espouse the belief that it only works if you do it with God because then it's a real commitment and not legal. But however, whatever the answer is, there does seem to be a new level of commitment, and it creates some peace.
Yeah.
Or terror.
Yeah.
It didn't create terror for you.
No.
It really was. It was like the raddest thing we've ever done.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
There's a phenomenon called buyer's remorse in the literature of marriage, in the academic literature. This idea that after you come back from the honeymoon, a lot of people go, oh, what have I done?
Oh, no.
And then they have to work through a year or two of that, and then it comes out the other side stronger if they do.
Yeah.
You guys didn't get any buyer's remorse?
Not really, no.
Not an ounce.
Yeah.
It was our wedding, our honeymoon, and then we moved here right after. So it was a lot of really huge adjustments all at once. And our honeymoon was in Spain, and I had never left North America before. So that was a huge life moment for me. It was just like everything that could happen happened. And it was so comforting, and I just felt so whole knowing that we had gone through this huge commitment to each other, and all of this stuff was now happening as a team. Like we use the term team a lot, I think.
We do use the term team a lot. And the other thing is, I feel like my life with Kelli is always growing upwards and forward. Like I've never felt like being with Kelli was like, all right, well, this is what that is. It's always fun to be around Kelli. It's always sort of challenging in the best way possible to be around Kelli. And I've never felt like, I wasn't learning more about you or growing personally by being with you. Like I never felt like that was coming to a halt at all. Like I felt always like I feel like having chosen you and now being married and being on the other side of our marriage, I just feel like it's always going to be better. The next day is going to be better than the last. Like
Thanks.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, because I think that too.
Well, that's it for part 1 of the Kelli and Timothy interview, folks. Thanks for listening. Be sure to tune in on Thursday when Kelli and Timmy discuss building a life that doesn't always meet the expectations of society. You can find out more about Kelli on her Instagram feed, which is at KelliLamb_. That's KelliLamb_. Don't forget the underscore. Or you can also find her at ruemagazine.com, RUE magazine.com, where she's the managing editor. Timothy's Instagram is at TimmyLamb. That's TimmyLamb. And he's also one of the art directors and also the character designer for Trolls, which is forthcoming from DreamWorks Animation this November. If you liked what you heard, please subscribe to us on iTunes. It makes a big difference. If you have any questions or comments, or if you'd like to be on the show, please reach out via one of our social platforms. You can find us on our website at www.together.guide. Our Facebook page is facebook.com/togethershow. Twitter and Instagram are both at together_show, or you can email me at host@together.guide. Our producer is Charlene Goto. Our web designer is Courtney Munna. Our art director and my one and only is Aubrey Pick. Right now she's meeting our friend Micah's new baby, and I wish I was there. Congratulations, Micah. Thanks once again to my guests, Kelli and Timmy. Guys, let's have a party at your house. Be sure to tune in for Thursday's episode, in which you will hear.
When she's really upset about something, I can take a step back and go, what she's upset about, it doesn't upset me that much. So I don't actually have to match her. I can stay at my comfortable thing and let her work through whatever she's feeling. And then that happens on the positive side too. I don't have to match your excitement over things either.
That's all for today, folks. See you next time.